my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Trying to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where each month we go over the stories of Geek and we analyze them. We go over the positives, the negatives, and we laugh at all the stupid shit in between. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is my usual panel of fellow geeks and fellow awesome guys in general, starting, of course, with Brinton Volley, who we were able to somehow be able to pull him out of his classes and his work and not kill him in the process. So, Brinton, how's it feel to be alive?
Who says I'm alive?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Well, actually, that brings up another question. Alex, are we necromancers?
Could be.
Well, I mean, you live in the shadows, so necromancy would be up your alley.
So I see we're trying new things this year.
I guess
Very
so.
Proud of you guys.
Necromancy is the new thing. And joining us also is Alex the Shadow Blazer, joining us from the darkness of the realm of shadows. Alex, have you had any interesting Yu-Gi-Oh characters come through to brighten up your day, so to speak?
Sadly, no.
Darn it.
I guess everybody's too good at the game now. No one's getting sent to the shadow.
Well, I mean,
anymore.
you know, the typical Yu-Gi-Oh game these days lasts about 10 minutes. That's the funniest part about it. Is like when the game started, games lasted 5 minutes, but now because of how complex summoning has become, now games last 10 minutes. Because you spend 5 minutes getting your awesome Leet Haxor's boss monster out on the field, and then you win.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So let's go ahead and start things up the way that we usually do, which is now that the holidays are behind us, now that schedules are starting to kind of calm down, have we actually been able to get around to playing or watching anything new or continue on in things that we were already working on? And I know one in particular question that I keep getting, and I'm guessing this is just going to be a thing from here on in, Alex. Where are you at in anime, and when are we going to get like the next big review from you? Even though I don't even think you do the spring and fall reviews anymore.
I don't really do seasonal first impressions anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a big review, I did just drop one this week. Looked back at all the 12 of the well, technically it was only 11. There was supposed to be 12 shows that I watched last year.
Okay.
That it just kind of that wasn't like related to 12 days.
I was actually going to ask that.
Serendipitously worked out like that. It just kind of serendipitously worked out like that. But it was supposed to be 12 shows. Unfortunately, one of the shows I talked about caused a copyright issue on the
because
video,
of course it did. Because that's what anime fans have to deal with all the time.
All the time. So I had to trim the whole segment out.
Yep.
I thought about maybe trying to cut around it, maybe just trying to like shorten the clips, but I just kind of said to hell with it, and I cut the whole segment. It was small anyway, but it was a look back at everything I watched in 2020.
Okay. Anything in particular you want to highlight, or?
I mean, like I said, I think when we talked about our best and worst, for me, the anime that really kind of I turned around on because I didn't like it too much at first, but then I grew to like it a lot more was Spy Classroom, not related to Spy Family, if you're wondering, but Spy Classroom, which I remember kind of being pretty lukewarm about the first season. I watched the second season, which I wound up enjoying a lot more, but then I went back and since I've gone back and rewatched the first season again, and I've enjoyed it way more. Okay. So that's really turned out to be a show for my show of the year.
Does Spy Classroom have any relation to Assassination Classroom by chance? No. Okay, because somebody actually decided to dig out, like, when we talked to Romney about, or when Romney introduced us to the concept of Assassination Classroom, and actually, I guess we said we were going to watch it at some point, and they decided to ask us, so when are you going to get around to that? And I'm like, wow, I forgot that even happened. I mean, I'm aware of Assassination Classroom because everybody's told me about it, and ever like that ever since that moment with Romney, but I don't remember if we actually promised to do a season of it.
I never remember.
Did we?
Either.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Brenton, save us. We have amnesia. We have selective amnesia, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out at some point, but I just figured it'd be a good thing to bring it up there. Brenton, what about you? Have you been able to play or watch anything amidst all of the homework and all of the work that you had to do?
Well, lucky for me, things won't start getting too chaotic until up until going, oh my god, I'm gonna try that again. Things are not gonna get too chaotic for a couple more weeks. Getting into March is where stuff is gonna get crazy. So lucky for me, I've been able to organize myself well enough where I can comfortably and guilt-free play Final Fantasy 16 and like still continue to do so, because I very much don't want that. I want that game to be done before Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are kind of making that commitment. It's either with 16 or the fact that they haven't played the Crisis Core reboot yet, and so they want to be done with all of that before Rebirth comes out. I think us mispronouncing words is going to be a thing today. It's almost like January did something horrible with us.
But yeah, that's I've been able to play Final Fantasy 16 luckily. But once I get into March, things are going to start to get a little bit more busy in terms of how much time I need to spend on school.
Right. So for me, unfortunately, I wish I could say that I was horribly busy, and I wish I could say that I was as busy as these two schmucks, but unfortunately, my month of January is going to be burned in effigy, and not for the burning value, but more for the sanitizing value, because I spent most of the month of January sick, and I don't even know the timing of it, and I think even Alex is kind of giggling at the circumstances, and justifiably so, because we started things off with my wife getting adenovirus, and so that went around our house. Then my friend from Atlanta came to visit, because he's actually got a second little boy on the way, and he didn't know this, but he brought flu with him. And so at that point, I caught the flu and brought it home, so that my youngest got it, as well as my wife got it, and she was just barely recovering from adenovirus. So then she got to deal with the flu and basically had a string of like a couple of weeks where she could not sleep unless she was elevated in some way, which was annoying as hell to her. And then she ended out the month with getting, I think it was RSV is what they call it. That's basically just more respiratory virus. And and my wife and my youngest got an ear infection, because anytime she gets sick, she gets an ear infection. So we spent most of the month getting over shit, and maybe that was for the best. I don't know, because this is also around the time that after the holidays, when my work frantically tries to fix all the vans that it ran into the ground, to prepare for all of the small holidays that we're going to have to deal with, because for those who don't know, like we have like these little upticks in deliveries at Valentine's Day, at Easter, then we wait until Mother's Day, and then we go into the summer. And so at that point, we have that much time to get all of the vans repaired as best we can, so that we can keep consistently running. And that meant that a lot of vans were out of commission. And so a lot of the time that I spent sick, they were also like, well, we don't really have a van to give you today, so why don't you go home and get better?
As well.
Yeah, exactly.
Silver lining.
I mean, the only downside is less money out of it, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
The upside, though, is that I actually was able to get some new things done. So me and Andrea actually just barely started up Hogwarts Legacy again, and have not gotten very far. I think we just barely unlocked Hogsmeade, and got to see the cutscenes that happen out there. And that was pretty cool. We also got to see the controversial character. And by controversial, I don't even think she's that controversial.
Which,
the bartender.
Oh, you mean the transgender bartender?
Because I have no problem saying this, that yes, her voice was very noticeable, but also the way that she played the character made it sound like she was so fucking disinterested in the character that she just went monotone the whole time. She's like, it's literally like one of those moments where you could kind of tell, maybe this isn't the role she wanted to play. Maybe she wanted to play like a Hogwarts teacher or something. She's like, oh, are you guys bringing a fight into my bar? It's like, wow, you could sound at least a little bit more enthusiastic about it, lady, but okay. So me and Andrea were laughing for like half an hour because we actually did look it up. She was the controversial trans character that everybody told us about early on. And I'm just like, I don't even care that she's trans. I care the fact that she obviously doesn't want to be in the booth. So why don't you just go give her a lollipop or something? So maybe that's just me, but yeah, it just seemed like she was very disinterested. But we also did get around to a bunch of other games that I have not been able to play in a while, specifically a bunch of fighting games to be able to get out some of the excess frustration with the fact that I cannot leave my damn house. But that's okay, because January also gave us a bunch of things that were equally frustrating and also kind of laugh-worthy as far as I'm concerned. So with that being said, let's go ahead and officially put January in the books. Are we ready to do that? Yeah. And I think the best way to start things off is by telling you both that you should feel bad about being comfortable with owning your own games, damn it. Stop that. You know better. You're not true gamers. You want to own your games? Come on. Yeah, in case people don't know about this story, I even covered it in a mini cast because I just found it so laughable. And one of the reasons I found it laughable is because IGN is usually the outlet that comes out in support of some arguments like this. And this was one of the few times where they came out in opposition to it. So in case you guys don't know, the Ubisoft head of subscriptions, and sorry, I have to stop right there. Wow, doesn't that just explain this whole frickin' dilemma? This whole frickin' article? You were talking to the director of subscriptions, and of course he said the things that he was going to say. Because that's his frickin' job. Anyway, in case you guys don't know, the director of subscriptions, Philippe Tremblay, came out and recently spoke to GamesIndustry.biz and basically said the following quote. Let's see, I actually have to bring it up. Because I love that they take specific quotes and they won't actually do it. But basically, the gamers need to start feeling comfortable with not owning the games that they are playing. And this interview is in response to the fact that Ubisoft is basically launching what some are calling a similar Game Pass-like service. It's not really, but it's being compared to that, where if you pay a monthly fee, not only do you get early access to some of the new games that are coming out, but you will also gain access to being able to play some of the older games for no additional charge aside from your monthly subscription fee. And so at that point, that's when Tremblay decided to make the quote that's been heard all around the world, is when it comes to owning, where is it? Yes, the fact that he understands the gamer's perspective, but that ultimately we will have to get comfortable with not owning our games, much like apparently how we got comfortable with not owning CDs or DVD collections. This is the justification for his argument. I've seen Alex come up a couple of times. Do you want to chime in now, Alex?
Oh, what can I possibly say about how asinine this is, really?
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's just...
Yeah, so, What do you think of that argument, Alex? The fact that he's telling you that as a gamer, you should not be comfortable with owning your games anymore because that's just not how things go anymore, man. Now it's all digital. So you ought to just be happy about the fact that you're getting access to a service that allows you to play the game that you own.
I've definitely ranted on this, but yes, I'm tired of everything having to be a service.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a service now. No, I don't want to pay 20 different monthly fees.
No.
Right? Just to play or watch or do this or that.
Especially
just
if you own a physical copy of the game, right?
Exactly.
If anything, you'd want a discount because you own the game.
Yes.
So, yeah. Jiminy, I need to bring up the other article because I think the other article actually has the quote. But yeah, ultimately, this guy decided to talk out of his own butt. And
I do have the quote if you want. I have the quote if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and read it. But give me your best PR voice because it has to be read in a PR voice.
I don't think I can do that, but
well, I mean, unless you want to wait and then I can do the PR voice because it won't take me that long to get it.
One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's a consumer shift that needs to happen.
That's a consumer shift that needs to happen. That's a consumer shift that needs to happen, not owning your property. So apparently, Alex, we've been doing, and Brenton, we've been doing it wrong all of these years. When we went to the game store and we bought the physical copy so that we could take it home and we could play it whenever we wanted, however we wanted. If we wanted to cheat with a fucking Game Shark, we could do that. But we've been doing it wrong.
Apparently.
So, yeah. And by the way, that was actually a pretty good PR voice, man. I'm not gonna give you crap about that.
All right.
Yeah. So, and yeah, you got a PR voice. We can mess around with that. But ultimately, the reason that he's making these statements is because he obviously wants everybody to buy this new Ubisoft Plus Premium. Question: does anybody on this panel have Ubisoft Plus Premium?
I didn't even know it was a thing.
Neither did I, but the answer.
I didn't even buy Uplay when that was being pelted down my throat when I was playing Assassin's Creed 3. I didn't even buy Uplay. So what makes you think that I was going to do this? Oh, and apparently another big victory of this in the interview is that Ubisoft Plus Premium is also getting access to Amazon Luna. And Amazon Luna is basically Amazon's answer to Stadia, and somehow the platform is still around, even though I've heard its numbers aren't that great. So, yay. Brenton, your thoughts on the statements that have been made by one Philippe Tremblay?
I don't really play Ubisoft games anymore, so I'm not super crushed.
And the funniest thing is that you were the last holdout because you were still playing Assassin's Creed, I believe. No, you weren't, because you were waiting for a new Watch Dogs, and they still haven't done that.
No, I was playing Valhalla, and then I got a divorce during the middle of my playthrough, so my desire to restart virtually exploded. Right. Especially since I did some microtransactions, so I was just like, yeah, there's no way I'm ever getting any of that progress.
Like I heard in Valhalla, experience was really hard to get your hands on. And so everybody I know had paid for at least one microtransaction for an experience boot.
No, experience was fine. It was materials. I spent it mainly on materials and like occasionally a cosmetic item. The point is, I was never getting any of that back.
Right.
Maybe I'll go back to Valhalla one day, but that day is not today. I'll play another Watch Dogs game if they're able to be innovative enough to. go above and beyond what Legion did. Otherwise, Ubisoft games, from what I've heard, from what I've watched on YouTube, and from what I've heard, comes directly from people who have been playing current games that has been released by them. It's just the same old crap. They haven't changed much of their formula. Besides storytelling still being fairly decent, gameplay is very predictive. It's the same old crap, and people are just getting bored and tired.
Well,
and with me,
correct me for chiming in here, but like, kind of getting back to Watch Dogs, I don't think that they've even announced that a Watch Dogs title is in the works. Beyond Good and Evil 2 is in limbo, from what I understand, because the lead developer, or the creator of Beyond Good and Evil, left under auspicious circumstances. So at that point, like, and on top of that, the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time reboot is it safe to say that's dead? Because we haven't heard hide nor hair on it for the longest time.
Oh, I think it's dead.
Yeah. I've even been told by people who love the Just Dance series. I know that there are some people that actually do like that franchise. They've actually been very disappointed in Ubisoft over the last few years, because Just Dance is basically been like an NFL game. It just doesn't innovate anymore. So
yeah, the Legion came out in October of 2020, so it's almost been 3.5 years. But I mean, like, I'm not quite sure what more they can do with this IP. Legion was super fun. I think how they went about developing and piecing it together was phenomenal. But I mean, I'll watch trailers and I'll give it a shot.
Right.
However, at the end of the day, I didn't love that they went back to their roots with Assassin's Creed. Because again, it's just going back to the same old, boring formula.
Well, and on top of that, like, is it just me, or is Assassin's Creed basically the Call of Duty of Ubisoft? Because now you have, I think they've openly admitted there are 4 teams working on Assassin's Creed games at any given moment, one of which has come out. Now the other 3, I think one of them's due in 2025, and then the next one will be a year later, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean,
you know what? I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that makes
because what was the new one? The new one that was based in Turkey, that came out last year, and then this year I believe is supposed to be the we don't know much on this one, but it's called Assassin's Creed Red, which a lot of people are assuming is going to be like a Russian one. Then I think the next one after that is the Ninja one that everybody's been highly anticipating, and that's in 2026. But yeah, they basically just took Assassin's Creed and made a Call of Duty in terms of streamlining it.
Yeah, early Assassin's Creed had a pretty stellar plot and story, and things just started to go a bit downhill story-wise after Black Flag. And I just don't care.
All I know is that I started Black Flag, and I didn't like the fact that now you didn't have a central character to follow anymore. You were basically like a beta tester for a travel agency, and I'm like, okay, well, that just took all of the interesting stuff that I liked from the first couple of games and threw that right out the window. So I never went back. Eventually, I probably will. But I'll tell you how this does hurt for me, Brinton. I was actually excited for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, because if people remember, Prince of Persia's roots is that it is a cinematic platformer. And for those who don't realize this or are too young to realize it, cinematic platformers are one of the earliest examples of Metroidvanias. And the fact that Lost Crown was taking Prince of Persia back to a Metroidvania type style was actually very intriguing to me, because it's basically like a return to the series' roots. And so at that point, finding that maybe there are other ways to be able to go aside from this remake of Sands of Time that we've heard virtually nothing about. And much like you, Brinton, I think it's just dead in the water and they don't want to admit it. So
eventually eventually, sometime within this or even possibly 2025, they're going to have to come forward and
say something.
yeah, like, and just be like, yeah, we haven't been working on this since like 2020, whatever. It's donezo.
Right.
Like, it's not happening, guys.
But it's
Sorry.
okay, Brenton, because we have Skull and Bones, the game that got shoved down our throats for 3 to 4 years that we didn't know if we should care about. That's coming out this year. And they also have the Avatar license. Because even everybody that I know is looking at the Avatar games, not Last Airbender games, guys, the Navi ones. And they're all going, ooh, movie tie-in. And Ubisoft is one of the companies that was notorious for movie tie-ins having the reputation that they do, and they have the Avatar license. And somebody was also pointing out to me that there's also talk of a Black Flag reboot, or not a reboot, but a Black Flag remaster that's coming out soon. I was like, oh god, yeah. So I guess this is just Ubisoft screaming out into the night, because the more I talk to people, the more they're like, well, we're not happy that this guy said what he did, but does anybody really give a crap about Ubisoft anymore? Not really. I hate to say that. I want to care about game companies, but when you don't give me a reason to, I'm going to openly say it. So that being said, any final thoughts on this one? Because if people are going to notice very early on in this podcast, there's going to be a theme that's going on. Final thoughts on this one. Obviously, this guy should have shut his mouth. I actually still am of the opinion we are going to get a press conference at some point from Yves Guillemot, the president of Ubisoft, either taking him off of the marketing tour because he basically screwed the pooch, or that he is going to quietly resign, and maybe the division will also have to quietly resign as well, because this is not good publicity for that company, nor for the new Premium Plus platform that they want to do. Which, by the way, you can have for a monthly fee of $17.99.
Wow.
But hey, you can eat. But hey, if you catch on now, Alex, you could have it as low as $7.99 for a couple of months.
It's always for like the first 2 months or something.
But the $7.99 only gives you access to so many old games. Most of the stuff and I don't even think you get access to the early access with that service.
Come on, I get it's just a promotional, like, early sign-on bonus here.
And yet it sucks.
But I can't believe they're going to limit you just with that one tier. That's so stupid.
And I love that some people have actually come out going, well, this is new ground for them. Bullshit it is. They could literally look at Netflix and go, would this work with Netflix? Yeah, probably not. Like, I love that so many people are coming out into the defense and basically saying, well, streaming games as a new concept, and they need to figure out a way to be able to do a business model. And yet, strangely, Game Pass and PlayStation Plus are doing it better, and before them, Nintendo Switch Online? Huh? You can't say this is new ground. This is stuff that's been being dealt with for like a few years now. Okay, final thoughts, Brenton?
I'm just going to say this. A coworker and I were chit-chatting about about what was it? Amazon Prime now doing ads in any sort of show or movie that you stream. If you don't want to watch the ads, you can pay $2 more a month on your subscription and you will be ad free. So why do I mention this? The conversation progressed to, we are now at a point where base level services and subscriptions are increasing in price.
Yes.
There are no new features, and we're now starting to get ads. So it's almost like, at the end of the day, I have all these streaming services, and it's all adding up to the same price as if I were to pay for cable.
Right.
And I'm having this same experience as if I were watching cable.
Mm-hmm. Funniest thing about that.
So
what's really sad too is that you know that there's some kid out there who is paying that extra $2.99 because they just cannot figure out how to handle commercials. Just go to the bathroom.
Because people who are younger than us can't handle stuff like that. They have that need for instant gratification because that's how they grew up. That's the world that they live in. So yeah, it will eventually not work for them. But at the end of the day, I think it's highly silly that a team of artists and writers and developers and people who are far more talented than I can't be compensated correctly because I'm not allowed to buy the art that they have put out on the shelf for me to purchase and to have a copy of and to enjoy for however long I feel the worth of the game collecting dust on my shelf. I don't think any singular person who doesn't understand that should have the right to say, start getting used to not owning anything.
Yeah, bullshit.
Like, no. I don't think so.
I mean, for crying out loud, like I said earlier, IGN put out an article shortly after these statements were made, and I'm just going to read the headline, and you guys can decide whether or not you want to read it. I read it. I actually thought they did a good job. Hollywood keeps reminding us why we need physical media more than ever. It might be time to start recollecting those discs.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up too.
Yeah, no. I actually, you read the article?
Not this article in particular, but it was something I was thinking about when the news of this came up. The whole like Ubisoft, like you should get comfortable, and I'm like, I thought the exact same thing as IGN did here with this editorial saying, Hollywood's kind of been proving why this is not a good idea, and we could just pointing to. It was either late last year or early this year, the Warner Discovery merger, and how much content absolutely got axed for no other reason than to give the company a nice, juicy tax write-off. So,
well, not only that, but so, like with some of the agreements that actually happen with your people are discovering this now with like the license agreements with Netflix and with Amazon Prime Video and even you brought it up, Max. The fact that they are so open-ended that not only could they justify, like Disney Plus right now is looking to get rid of a lot of its newer content because it didn't bring in money. So like, for example, one of the ones that's looking to maybe get the axe is the first season of She-Hulk. And it's primarily just because it didn't do the numbers that were desired by Disney. But I didn't watch She-Hulk, and I didn't have any intention of watching She-Hulk, especially after I saw the whole thing of She-Hulk, what's the dance? She-Hulk twerking that has been memed into oblivion. I had no intention of watching this thing, but you know that there was at least one person that watched that and went, wow, this is really good. And Disney Plus is basically going to say, well, F you, because this didn't do the numbers that it was supposed to do, and now you can never watch it ever again.
Just randomly speaking of Disney Plus, it was my interpretation that Disney Plus was going to be a provider that allowed us to engage with like all Disney content. So the fact that it went into the direction of reboots and more Marvel and this and that and that and this, it's I don't know. As a consumer, it's completely unnecessary.
Right.
I just want to be able to watch old school DuckTales and
I hate to be the guy, but
instead, I can't.
Yeah, it's almost like I called this way early on when I saw a lot of the content that they were saying was coming out to Disney Plus, is that they came in under the guise of, we will give you access to all of these shows that you've never been able to get access to. All we ask is that you be our glorious Amaranth equivalent of pay pigs. And when we decided not to do that, because in the month of February, when we actually talk about this, their subscriber numbers have gone down quite a bit over the last few years. It's almost like since they decided to not do that, we haven't been satisfied as customers, and we have been showing our dissatisfaction by going somewhere else. And I find that all too funny, especially considering that, you know, not only can, with the way that these license agreements work out, can they get rid of these shows that don't do well, despite the fact that you like it and you still want to be able to watch it, but they can also, as some people are pointing out, because this has worked out so well on platforms like YouTube, they can ultimately, because there's nothing restricting them from doing it, they can make it so you can't access the things that you want to watch or play or relive or any of that. And so a lot of people have problems with that. And that's been another thing that's been getting on Disney Plus's case as well, because they also have that open-ended agreement that people aren't very happy about. So it's almost like you need to all of them need to rethink how they're doing their streaming platforms, whether it be game streaming or movie streaming, and determine what is actually going to bring in money for you. New content or as Brenton was pointing out, shepherding the old content and allowing it to be watched. Which a lot of people still argue with me to this day that that's not what Netflix existed for. Bullshit, it didn't. Because if that's not how it wouldn't have, if that wasn't the concept initially, then how did they get the money for Castlevania? Because I know for a fact that the reason they got that was because of the level of viewership they got from having Power Rangers, Star Trek, Friends, you name it, they had it. That's how they got the money to be able to do that. So your snazzy new animated Sonic franchise, that money came from that idea. And now, obviously, they can't do it, but maybe they ought to consider doing it. So that being said, my final thoughts are very simple, which is, wow, I was really looking forward to that Prince of Persia game. I guess I'll wait 2 or 3 months before I buy it. And hopefully Philippe Tremblay does not go out and insert his foot in his mouth any more than he already has. But I would also recommend that people read the IGN article, because considering, like I said, IGN is usually the people that come out and apologize and usually are placating these companies that pay them to be able to do that. And in this case, they made a very compelling argument that, yeah, this is all bullshit and you should go out and collect physical box sets again. Because at any point basically the argument that they're making is that the shoe can drop, and then at that point you just don't have access to it. Either that, or we all start encouraging a certain profession that involves sailing the 7 seas. Which, funniest thing, guess what's been a massive increase this month?
VPNs or torrenting?
I was going to say pirating in general. But there you go. So let's go ahead and get into the second bit of stupidity that happened this month. So not only do we have Philippe Tremblay comfortably coming out and proudly saying that you should get used to not owning your games, we also had the localization team for Bandai Namco, of all companies, coming out and telling us how proud they are that they are overreaching to such an extreme degree as they have been able to get active censoring done on major game properties and franchises simply because they now apparently have the clout to do so. So, yeah, this is actually from an article that occurred from the Japan Times. So it is being translated. There's a lot of stuff that we still haven't even seen in this entire article, in this entire interview. Apparently it was pretty damn long. But some of the gist of what we got from that is, I just love this, Alex, because we fought this way too many times. It's time for my PR voice. We tell them that the cleavage is a bit too exposed, or the skirt is a bit too short. Before, they weren't very flexible, but they've become more proactive on such subjects. So basically what is happening, for those who don't know, Bandai Namco localizers are putting pressure on game developers and game creators on when they try to localize their game to come to the US or to come to Europe, because this is also happening for European versions, that if your female characters are, quote, too revealing, then the localizers can apparently go to the higher ups and force you to censor your game. How do you feel about that, Alex?
This is really stupid, and I think everybody needs to get their priorities a little more in line.
Would we say that this is overreach? Would this be overstepping their duties in their job?
I mean, it kind of depends, because again, localization teams, well, this is kind of their job. It is obviously to sort of, cater the game to the market that they're localizing for, but I think it's just more evident of wider problems in the whole entertainment industry. As more and more companies obviously have to consider global markets as they make products.
Right.
We've seen it in Hollywood, we've seen it in anime, we've seen it in gaming, right? It's obviously difficult to properly find a way that's going to be culturally, and I don't know what else I'm thinking of, just culturally appealing and understanding for your audience. But this is, and of course, because most game studios, well, pretty much all of them, are obviously ran by business types more than creative types. Of course, they're going to just
now I will interject here. The companies that are successful know how to balance that equation by working with the creators and saying, okay, well, we know you want to do this. Can we compromise? Or, we just put a warning on it, kind of thing.
Yes. Nintendo, for their faults, I think, is such a company that can balance that business with the art and commerce side of the whole paradigm,
right.
Basically.
I would say at least that they are way more able to do it than Sony.
The development of Bayonetta 2 is an excellent example of the balance between creativity and business.
Right.
So, but it just seems like a lot of times aspects like these are kind of knee-jerk reactions to problems that don't exist. It's it's as stupid as this whole thing was. It's like the whole green M&M, Eminem redesigning the green M&M but nobody really complained about the green M&M.
No.
Right? But M&M's had to make a big deal out of it.
Well, any M&M controversy, honestly, because I still remember when they did the purple M&M and everybody, and M&M acted like everybody was in an uproar and nobody gave a crap.
Yeah, nobody cared then, nobody cares now, but then people just, to be contrarians, have to start a whole thing over it, and it's so stupid. And oftentimes that's a lot of times what things like this are, the whole localization having to worry about, this is going to offend somebody, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. Unfortunately, it's going to be a dice roll, but I think it's just the risk you're going to have to start taking, and it's something that developers will have to think about very carefully, but I think it's something localizers should have to think about too. Not demands, but I don't think it's out of the realms. I
think that they can have a seat at the table in that regard.
Yeah.
But the final answer should not be in the localizer's seat. It should be in the corporate or the creator's seat, ultimately. Because the creator is the guy who made it, and the corporate guy is the one who paid to make it.
Yeah. And the video, you posted this article also in our general feeds as well. And I posted a video response about it from the YouTube channel Censored Gaming, who in turn had a response from the interviewee of this particular article from the Japan Times. And so maybe this is a bit more nuanced, and it is a kind of a case of it's not as much them completely demanding as much as it is trying to do the back and forth of listening to the localization team and trying to make the game marketable, ideally, for the future. That's how I took it.
Well, and here's my argument with it, because the article that I was putting up also pointed out that there were creators or devs that were fighting against this culture that has now been created where the localizers have this amount of power and shouldn't. Specifically, the ones that get brought up are the current game director of the Tales series, because he or she has already come out and said that Tales of Arise, which is the new one that's coming out, never mind, sorry, it's been out for a while, but they basically answered that by saying, okay, we're going to put out 2 versions of the game, one that's censored and one that isn't. And so then at that point, it's up to the consumer. Do they want the censored version or do they want the uncensored version? They get to choose they get to use their $60, which to me, great answer, right? Because then at that point, they are able to basically put out there and say, okay, this many people bought the censored version versus the uncensored version. Maybe we ought to go in this direction from here on in.
Yeah, and this is actually how a lot of small-scale indie visual novels work, is they often have, like, patches to include more of the risque or adult
and some of those
content,
patches are
depends on
free, by the way. So you're not even paying for them.
Yeah, so I think that's something that everyone could get behind there.
And from what I understand, a lot of these patches are basically, they give you the choice. They say, oh, here's what's in this. You might not like it. Here's a toggle that you can press that you can get rid of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Some games even do have like in-game toggles to activate that or turn it off entirely. So,
and what's even more frustrating about before I get into the other one, who's another major focal point, is like, this is technically the answer to it, is that you just give the option within the game. Do I think that Tales of Arise needed to come out with 2 completely different versions of the game? Maybe if the game was big enough, then yeah, I could totally understand that. But ultimately, I think that they could have easily done a toggle. Maybe at that time they couldn't have. But then later on, they can just decide, oh, okay, well, we'll just put a toggle in the game and that'll solve the problem. And that way we don't have to spend so much extra on physical game sales. But at that point, like, that's ultimately the option that you want to give, is if people don't want it, they can turn the toggle on. They don't have to worry about it. One in particular, though, that I did want to point out, because he is recently under fire within Bandai Namco, and many sources can actually confirm this, is one Katsuhiro Harada. For those who don't know who he is the creator of the Tekken games. And in case you guys don't know, Tekken 8 just barely came out, and from what I understand, has done gangbusters for them. But he was suffering a lot of pushback internally at Bandai Namco for a lot of the character design choices that he maintained with a lot of the female and male characters that were coming out. Apparently, one of the localizers actually had an issue with the way King currently looks. For those who don't know who King is, he is a masked luchador wrestler who has, through most of the... Correct me if I'm wrong, Brenton. I might be wrong about this. He's been shirtless for most of the games, right?
Yeah.
But he always has like some kind of robe that he comes out in the intro and takes off because he's ready to grapple with you. Apparently, he suffered some pushback because at one point or another, there was no option to have that robe just stay on so that his open chest was exposed to everybody. I mean, obviously, Brenton, you're going to complain about that.
I'm in a fury.
Absolutely. Another one that received a lot of criticism was one Nina Williams, who is known to be very scantily clad in her games. And the localizers decided to put pressure corporately on Harada to try and change both Nina, and I believe Anna is also in the game, and she's also very scantily clad, and trying to get them to censor those characters when they have a notable record for being scantily clad femme fatale characters. And what's even better is apparently one of the complaints is that apparently Harada has nothing but scantily clad women in his games. And I just laugh at that because this game actually reintroduced one of the most conservative characters in Jun Kazama, who is the baby mama of Jin Kazama and the supposed love interest of Kazuya Kazama. And she is probably one of the more conservatively dressed of the Tekken female cast. I don't think you thought that argument very well, but Harada has actually been facing a lot of internal pressure because of the fact that he is stuck to his guns in these regards. Just really quick on that, Alex, like, if Harada's sticking to his guns, do you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with it.
I don't either. I think, in all honesty, like, he knows what he's doing, and frankly, Tekken games sell. So at that point, like, I think he has more than enough clout to be able to say, yeah, we're not gonna censor these characters because people like these characters the way that they are. The other example that Froger, who's the guy that's being interviewed, pointed out was that apparently one of the characters was dressed in black boots and big leather coats, and in Europe they decided to try to censor that character, didn't go through, because it could be insinuated as a Nazi uniform. Let me say that again. Wearing black boots and big leather trench coats is the equivalent of a Nazi uniform. Shall I point out how many characters, Alex, wear black boots and a big black leather trench coat in the Tekken series? One of which is German! And by the way, one of the things I love about the Tekken games is that everybody speaks their own native language, but we all understand each other. Like, there's a fucking universal translator in the room. You will literally have 4 people in the room. One speaks Italian, one speaks Japanese, one speaks English, and the other one speaks Spanish. They all understand each other perfectly. Apparently, we got to Star Trek, and I didn't even realize. But yeah, that's where I'm kind of standing on this. And actually, this is going to affect you pretty soon, Alex, because I don't know if you're interested in the Amazon MMO Blue Protocol, which I guess is connected to Blue Reflection. That is already facing a lot of pressure internally to be censored so that the female characters are less sexualized and less feminized. So it's not just Bandai Namco that's doing that. They're trying to show that there's also actively a movement going on with localization teams being able to basically say, oh, well, we know better than those pesky game creators. Those game creators are the only ones, brought in the money. So yeah, any final thoughts on this one? Brinton, you've been kind of quiet on this story overall. What's your take on the Bandai Namco localization and other localization teams admitting that they basically are trying to throw their weight around?
My brain's a little bit fried on this
Sure.
one, if I'm to be completely honest. In short, I don't think it's appropriate. There is a lot of multicultural, what's the term I want to use here? Factors that need to be taken into consideration with localization for sure. And I know nothing about localization. I don't know the exact nuances or the specifics in which they operate. However, I don't feel that it is respectful for I don't think it's respectful for a team of localizers from an entirely different country to tell its source material that they need to change to meet their consumers' comfort level.
Right.
And to say that their consumers' comfort level matches their own is also highly inappropriate because everybody is different. Society is it's much more robust than a team of localizers.
Right.
And so overall, I think that this is so completely inappropriate. It's just inappropriate. And I hope that this allows for opportunities to learn about multicultural differences and how it also affects the gaming industry. Because games coming from different parts of the world and being translated, localized, and distributed to various types of people from different types of backgrounds and cultures is going to be something that we're going to see for the remainder of our 3 very individual lives. So this is bringing up a very interesting potential larger problem that could get worse if not like properly handled and addressed.
Right.
So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Alex, do you want to add in yours before I add in mine?
I think I've said everything I have to say. So.
Okay. So for me, this is like I'm getting sick and tired of hearing about how localizers apparently know how to do or how to bring things to a culture better than the creators themselves. I mean, before we were dealing with this in video games, I got so sick and tired of hearing insert localizer from this anime company is changing lines in this particular anime, whether or not they have the permission of the creator to insert a stupid political point or insert a stupid reference that doesn't really even make sense to current context or the culture that it's going into. I mean, for crying out loud, the big one that's been brought up for most of this month has been Jamie Markey, in the fact that, you know, how many years ago was it, Alex, when Ancient Magus Bride came out and she did the notorious patriarchy line? It has to have been like 5 years now.
Oh, that wasn't Magus Bride. That was Miss Kobayashi.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Dragon Maid. Sorry. But yeah, it has to have been like 5 years now, right?
I think a little longer than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And it still gets brought up. And I especially love that apparently at a recent con appearance, Jamie brought up how stupid all of her detractors were, because if they all like that was apparently one line in Kobayashi's Dragon Maid that got changed. Well, if you have a problem with one line, you should have totally seen how much we changed in Panty and what is it, Panty and Stocking, that her and Monica Rial did. And what makes it even worse for that argument is that it's not even viable, because she openly admitted in that same panel that she had permission to change things around for Panty and Stocking. Whereas to my knowledge, I mean, Alex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, she never really had the permission to do that line with Dragon Maid. So
maybe not. I don't know.
I don't think she. The way I've been told, she didn't have it, and so at that point, it's a moot point, because at that point you want to compare a franchise where you had that permission to be able to do that, which I don't have a problem with, versus one where it's ambiguous whether or not, or it's gray area whether or not you had that, because that's a non-argument to me.
I want to just continue on this for a second, but I get it with like Panty and Stocking because that's a comedy.
Yes, and a lot of the stuff from what I understand, a lot of the stuff just wasn't going to hit here the same way. And so at that point, they did have to change that stuff, and that's why they had the permission of the creators to be and the studio to do that. And so that to me is why that's a non-argument. And why her bringing it up in a panel to try and justify her actions, it doesn't do anything, because all it did is say, oh, well, you had the fortitude to go and ask one creator, but not the other one, which is ultimately what it kind of looks like. And so I'm sick and tired of this crap overall. Localizers need to understand their role in the company, which is that your role is to make it worthwhile to the culture that you're trying to adapt it to. And in my personal opinion, especially with the creator of the Tales series doing it in the way that we think should be done, maybe he ought to be running the localization team, because it sounds to me like he at least will come to the table and negotiate. So at that point, that's kind of my viewpoint on the matter. This is massive overreach as far as I'm concerned. And frankly, the fact that they have any power when obviously, you know, they can't get anywhere with Harada just tells me, you know, they don't have as much power as they think they do. And so I'll be happy to hear that some of these people probably either are not allowed to do marketing or press tours anymore, or they've quietly left the company of their own volition. And that I'll just giggle at that. But
actually, there is one more thing I do want to say. I finally remembered it. But yeah, I'm just like, it's not the 80s anymore. It's not the 90s anymore. Gaming is not a niche little hobby by a few handful of people. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I get it. That goes both ways, but just treat your audience with a little bit of respect.
Yes.
The average gamer is already well into adulthood.
I mean, for crying out loud, like we to go with what you're saying, we live in an era where NetherRealm Studios can literally obliterate, mutilate, and annihilate the human body in 365 different ways. You're totally okay with that, but showing one nipple on camera, no, that's taking it too far.
It's so true. We're so prudish.
Oh my gosh. Like, this is one of those times where I've played games with people from Europe and from Canada and all, and this is one of those times where I actually do let them get the "you stupid Americans" argument out, because it is stupid. Like, at that point, I'm not saying that I would be completely okay with, a male and a female character dropping trow and immediately, like, getting it on camera. No, I have every problem with that. But if they just so happen to walk out in a really scantily clad bikini, I'm not going to lose sleep over that. Whereas that's one big reason, boys and girls, why I haven't bought Mortal Kombat 1, and I have no intention of doing so. Because the fatalities are so fucking graphic in that franchise now, they're not even funny anymore. They're just fucking gross. It makes me pine for the days of Mortal Kombat 3, where all of a sudden a bunch of little grenades are put out on the floor, like 40 of them, and for some reason the earth explodes from that. I miss those days. It's so, or a person explodes and for some reason that person has 3 different rib cages and 4 different skulls. I miss those days now. But yeah, so there's just so much wrong with that whole argument, and why I still kind of stick to the whole stance of, yes, I am still very much in the boobs, not blood category. Because at this point, I don't think I'd have a problem. Like, if I had a little boy, I don't think I'd have a problem with them seeing boobs on screen. But I definitely wouldn't show them the wishbone fatality from Mortal Kombat 9. I'm telling you that much right now. That being said, let's go ahead and get it.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Adam. Like, you want to see more body. You want to see body, yaddy, yaddy.
Dude. At this point, which would I rather see? Dude in a Speedo? Or dude getting the wishbone fatality?
I'd rather see dude with the
dude in the Speedo, honestly. Like, at that point, I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to have nightmares about that. I don't know. I guess it depends on the Speedo, I guess. But also, depending on who's wearing it. But let's...
I mean, they could just be completely off, too.
I mean, they totally could. I mean, there has been examples in anime of that. So let's go ahead and get into the next article. And this one I was specifically supposed to get for Alex, because apparently the reaction we're supposed to get is going to be akin to Mount Vesuvius erupting. And I find it funny that this happened very close to the Ubisoft situation. So it's official, Alex. The Funimation app will be ending all services on April 2nd, 2024. So we've been wondering when this is going to happen. We knew that it was going to happen. And obviously, a bunch of the stuff that we knew was going to happen is going to happen. So, like, the Crunchyroll and the Funimation data, the libraries, they're all going to get merged over. They're also even going to be they say they're going to be very careful and make sure you don't get double billed after that, because they actually have been getting complaints about people still getting, like, I'm actually one of these people where I moved over to Crunchyroll and discontinued my Funimation account, but my Funimation account still got charged for a month. And so I had to go harp them to get a refund for that month. And for all the people on the Twitters that want to point out to me, it's just $10. $10 buys a lot of things when you're a parent. So it does matter.
Yeah, do not challenge a parent who can stretch a dollar.
$10 is a lot. I now understand why Mick Foley was known for being a hilariously huge haggler, because he had the chops for it. But here's the part that is supposed to cause said reaction. So, Alex, I hope you didn't buy any digital copies of anime from Funimation.
I didn't.
That's good.
So,
Because if you
sorry to
did,
disappoint the people.
you wouldn't get it.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. Right?
Uh-huh.
But I didn't.
Uh-huh.
I-
And one of the reasons that they can do this, you remember how I said that those user license agreements are getting very ambiguous and it's getting very, very scary how ambiguous they are? This is why they can do that, people. They can basically say, oh, you didn't buy Cowboy Bebop 3 different times. Go and buy it again. Yeah, so if you have digital copies of anime from the Funimation site, which I don't even think they did, but somebody did correct me that they did do it with some of their franchises. If you bought those, you don't get those available to you with Crunchyroll. You don't get a code that is going to let you access them regardless. And more importantly, you don't get a refund for your purchase. Why?
One more reason.
Because F you, that's why.
Yeah, just one more reason to keep buying physical, folks.
I seriously am going to put this IGN article like accompanied in the RSS feed, people. You need to read it. Because
I keep buying anime on Blu-ray. I keep buying Blu-rays.
Like
Adam, you were not kidding about the theme of January.
No.
Podcast.
No, I didn't even notice this was happening until I put the agenda together. I'm like, motherfucker, this is haunting.
I mean, this is a good PSA for 2024.
Yep. I made one purchase with Funimation's actual store. One. And it was for Blu-ray copies of the updated Yu Yu Hakusho. That was it. I don't know how many times I got advertised, oh, you like this series? Maybe you should buy it digitally. And I never did. And one of the reasons I didn't do it is because I saw this writing on the wall very, very clearly. And for good reason decided, yeah, they basically have a right to be able to say I didn't buy it and make me buy it again, or make it so that I don't have access to it, period. Oh, and by the way, Crunchyroll subscribers, that user license agreement is carrying over, and it's very ambiguous. And it almost sounds in some cases like they could restrict you from seeing things if there's enough backlash to it. Or if there's enough positive reception that they don't think the anime should get from it. So, yeah, consider that when you pay your monthly subscriptions to these services. Because at this point, commercials are sounding really good to me right about now. Why? Because I can go make a peanut butter sandwich in the meantime. Most people want to hear your reaction to this, Alex. How do you feel about Funimation and Crunchyroll going forward in this sense?
I mean, yeah, it's been known for well over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably like 2-3 years now that this merger was between the migration. Hell, I pretty much early on dumped my old Funimation account and just stuck with Crunchyroll because I didn't need the two different subscriptions. Right?
Which is kind of sad because, like, I hate to say it, but like the Funimation app in some cases ran better with some series than Crunchyroll does. And they still kind of haven't fixed that.
I mean, I have heard that, but I don't know. I've never really had too many issues with Crunchyroll.
I had that issue when I was doing work and trying to listen to Witch Hunter Robin. The Crunchyroll app had tons of issues trying to run that series, but I never had a single issue when I ran it on Funimation. So
yeah, everybody's gonna have a unique experience. I don't doubt it. I mean, because I still have flashbacks of Funimation's very first foray into streaming, which was like all the way back in 2009, and how awful their site just was. It never worked for me then. I didn't have too many problems after that when streaming became much more mainstream and became much more common. They finally got it going well. But yeah, pretty much once the merger had happened, once I knew that Funimation had said at some point they were going to just kind of migrate completely into Crunchyroll and fold everything into that, I pretty much just dumped my old Funimation account and stuck solely with Crunchyroll. Yeah.
Really quick, because you probably follow this better than I do. I have heard about tiers happening for Crunchyroll, but the farthest that I know is that they're just kind of keeping the same thing that they had, which is like there's an ad tier and then there's a premium tier, which lets you have access to more stuff. But I have been hearing that if you want to be able to simulcast stuff or get access to the brand new seasons, they are considering putting up a premium tier or an ultra tier or whatever, that's the only way that you can get access to it. So if you want to watch the latest season of My Hero Academia, you have to be subscribed to that if you want to watch it when it's coming out. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard if there's going to be yet another tier. I wouldn't surprise it. I know currently there still is the free to watch model that Crunchyroll's had for years, but it is a little more restrictive. And I know certain simulcasts are still locked behind the premium tier, which I'm still premium as far as I know. My account status hasn't really changed all that much. I can't say that Crunchyroll at some point in the future won't roll out like another higher end tier for the very high demand shows like My Hero Academia, for example, that will probably be more expensive. I just don't know anything like that happening right now, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out in the future.
Right. Brinton, hopefully you didn't buy any digital copies of anime from Funimation.
Oh. Full disclosure, I thought the merger already happened.
We all did. I mean, technically from a corporate standpoint, yes, it has. It's just the sites haven't merged yet.
The companies have officially been merged for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But like Adam just said, the sites have still been standalone. I'm kind of with Brenton, though. I thought the sites had already just completely rolled into each other by now.
Or they just forgot the Funimation app still existed.
Yeah, because as I was looking over what we were talking about tonight, I was like, what do you mean it's merging on April 2nd? Yeah. It's already merged.
Well, what they're basically saying is that as of April 2nd, the Funimation site will no longer exist. And so that point, like, everything will be moved over to Crunchyroll.
Well, to answer your question, no, I've never bought anything from Funimation. And when I knew that the apps were going to merge, I just subscribed to Crunchyroll because by that point, shortly after, like, this exclusive to Crunchyroll, this exclusive to Crunchyroll. So I was like, okay, well, I want to watch Jujutsu Kaisen, so I guess I'm getting a Crunchyroll.
Right. I do know a few of our listeners have actually just basically proactively either they never did any of the digital copies, they only ever went physical, or if they did buy something digital and they found out this service, they have basically decided to not get Crunchyroll until some kind of a resolution can be given to them in regards to this. And as far as I'm concerned, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, guys, but I think that's actually a good statement to make in that regard. Is like, you are an anime fan and you are appreciative of the fact that you bought these digital copies, and you feel like Funimation or Sony in this sense isn't listening to you. And what better way to handle that is that if enough people basically say, screw this, we're not going to immediately adopt over to Crunchyroll when Funimation goes away, maybe you could actually get Sony to reconsider. Maybe. I really don't think they will. I think you just kind of have to get used to that idea, and that sucks. But maybe if enough people actually bring to light just how ambiguous their user license agreement is, maybe they'd actually go and look at that and kind of narrow things down, give their customers a little bit more comfort in that regard. Because right now, that's the biggest thing I see with a lot of streaming platforms, not just Crunchyroll, not just Disney Plus. Paramount Plus has this problem. Max has this problem where their EULAs are so ambiguous, where they basically have the ability to be able to say, oh, you're a South Park fan? You don't get to watch South Park anymore because we don't like South Park. They are that ambiguous to be able to do that, and that's not how that should go. Like, whether or not the marketplace is digital, it's a marketplace. And so at that point, you have to acknowledge that somebody has paid for certain services. And if you're not willing to give said services, they have the right to be able to say, we're not going to pay your service, and we're going to start asking for refunds. Kind of thing. But final thoughts on this one. I wish I could say I was surprised. I am not. In fact, one of the things I'm really hoping still out of this merger that I still haven't gotten any confirmation is that more money from Sony's end is going into fixing Crunchyroll's app and website than it is into giving big, elaborate campuses for the employees to work at. I'm not saying that employees don't have a right to be able to work in some place that isn't like basically a mud hole. But if your site ain't working and that's your bread and butter, you might want to fix the bread and butter first so that you can have the stability and get the cool campus as well. I'm just saying. Alex, Brinton, anything you want to add on that?
Nothing more.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything else either.
Don't buy digital from Funimation, kids. That's the most that I can give you on that one. And finally, wow. I almost tried to avoid this story because I do know that Brinton has been having some issues with this. So much so, you kind of dropped social media from it. But it's time to talk Palworld. Just curious, Alex, have you been following the whole situation with Palworld?
Not a lot. I know a little bit about it, though, but I haven't really followed the story that closely.
So, I'll try and summarize this as best as I can. But overall, the controversy around Palworld is primarily that it is a Pokemon clone. Even though I have since seen footage of this game, and I would heavily argue that it is probably a Pokemon clone, but I think it's more akin to a Fortnite clone than anything else. So I don't think that that's really justification for a lot of the hatred and vitriol that's been spat out of this game. Also, people don't like the fact that it's popular. So it sold 5 million copies in just 3 games and surpassed 1.5 million concurrent players on Steam, which, according to internal Nintendo numbers and the Pokemon Company numbers, is more than who actively play online for Gen 9, for when they were collecting data for Pokemon Legends Arceus, etc. And primarily, a lot of the reason is because, yes, it is a cute and cuddly monster simulator where you have access to cute and cuddly monsters, but those cute and cuddly monsters can wield guns. Yeah, that's totally a Pokemon clone, right, Alex? Because how many times have you wanted your Machamp to be able to wield nothing but AK-47s?
Gameplay-wise, obviously not. I think more of the controversy comes down to the designs being strikingly similar.
Strikingly similar, although that's actually one of the other controversies that have happened, because a lot of the people that have been making the strikingly similar argument have now been outed and debunked on social media platforms for openly admitting that they had to change those images, models, and skeletons in order to make them as close as they were. So, probably not as close as people are saying that they are, or at least painting that they are. I especially loved that one in particular made some very compelling arguments about basically some of the evolutions got ripped from this game and were AI driven in order to make something, or a new model was created out of it that was completely AI driven, which the Palworld creator even came out and said when that model was being made, AI was nowhere near what it is now, and we wouldn't have been able to do that. And shortly after, then people started going through the footage of said guy's images and showcasing of how the skeletons are similar and showing how he modified the skeleton in order to make it look similar. Oops. So I'm going to address the big one in the room, that this game is, I don't know how people even came across this, that this is 100% created by AI when we know that there's a game creator and that he has a small team that works on it. Because a small team totally screams out AI driven, when even he has come out and admitted that when they started work on the game, AI was nowhere near what it is now. There's a lot of problems with a lot of the arguments that are being made. Here's another comparison that actually gets made. Not just that it's similar to Fortnite, but also Ark Survival Evolved. I haven't played that game, but okay. If it's similar to that one, that's the thing, is like, I can't even say that this is a Pokemon clone because There are elements of Fortnite. There are elements of what's the Norse survival game that came out a while ago? Valheim. There are elements of Genshin in there. I think it's just a mishmash. And so at that point, yes, there are similarities, but not enough to say that they outright ripped off Nintendo. I mean, am I wrong about that?
I would definitely say
I
that
don't know,
with
'cause some of
the
these designs look kind of similar. Go ahead, Brenton.
well, the thing that just kind of was weird to me was just how vehemently mixed the release of this game was. There was very many people who were excited,
Mhm.
as you know, one should be for a game that they're looking forward to play. And then the other side of the same coin was just like so repulsed by it.
Yes.
There was
There
no
was definitely
middle
a
ground. It was-
hardcore Pokemon audience that did not like the fact that they definitely perceived this as potential competition to Pokemon, and did not like that existed.
it's like the arguments were just absolutely insane. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for like I'm not for AI art, and I'm completely on the side of the artists who want to make that their living, they want to have money from it, and AI stealing from them is definitely a huge problem. I'm completely 100% all for that. My issue is that it just caused so many needless scenarios, many of which that we're talking about this that you've brought up already this evening, and it just created such an even higher toxicity, particularly on Twitter.
Yes.
That
Pokemon Twitter and Reddit have been horrible to deal with this month, and 80% of it is Palworld discussion.
Is it a game that I'm interested in? Not in particular, because there's several aspects of that genre that are not my favorite. It's not my type of game. Completely remove the fact that it's animals shooting each other with guns, which I even still think is weird, but that's partially the point. The point is it's not a game for me. So what do? I don't buy it.
Funniest thing how that makes a statement. Like, using your wallet to say, I don't like this, ergo I'm not going to buy it. Oh, but wait, you're supposed to buy the latest craze. No, I don't have to. What are you talking about?
And on top of it, it's like, oh, somebody else did? Okay. And don't get me wrong, like I looked into all these claims that people were making, and apparently it caused a big enough stir that freaking the Pokemon company had to get involved.
We'll get that. We'll get there in a minute, because that's part of this.
Yeah, I'm building a segue for you, Adam. Essentially, once it became known that no AI was used, people are faking similarities just to continue to rile up people. I was just like, I'm done. I'm completely done. And now the freaking Pokemon company is involved, and it's like, okay, let's say at the end of the day, at the end of the investigation, these developers truly made a game and truly created these creatures out of their own sheer talent and creativity. And now it sucks that they may not be able to support the game that they would like to support, because they're going to have to be putting a lot of money into legal fees because they have the Pokemon company coming after them.
That's assuming that the Pokemon company finds anything that they can actually get them on, which frankly, I'm of the opinion I don't think they're going to find anything. I think that they've got the grounds that I think that a lot of people are going to point out that they think they do. I think it's a stretch, and I think even the Pokemon company and Nintendo's legal teams are going to look at this and go, this is going to be a lengthy legal battle, and frankly, it's not going to make you look good in the public eye. It's going to make you look like you're picking on the little guy, and they're probably just going to advise them to just leave it alone. And I mean, unless Palworld becomes the next Fortnite, which its numbers aren't reflective of that in its first months or so. If it becomes the next Fortnite, then maybe we got something to talk about. But right now, it doesn't even sound to me like it's not. I don't think it's a big enough blip for the legal team to look at them and go, "Oh yeah, let's totally sue these guys." That's my opinion. And in regards to what Alex is saying too, I do agree. I do think some of the models look similar, Alex. But here's my problem with it, is that a lot of the models that do look similar, some of them are transformative enough that I think you could make the argument that they are completely unique designs, or at least transformative designs. And I also think that an argument that could be brought in court, that Palworld could bring to Pokemon, going, oh, so you own the copyright on what a rat looks like? Because obviously Pokemon had to have a basis for some of their designs, and you can clearly see what a lot of those designs are, and those are based on real-life animals. So does Nintendo get to decide who gets to make a whale and who doesn't? It's a complicated deal, and frankly one that I don't think that either Palworld or the Pokemon Company or Nintendo are going to look at this and go, yeah, it's not really worth bringing this to court, honestly. But as Brinton was pointing out, so basically enough people complained and brought it to the attention of Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, and Game Freaks all made statements. And where Game Freak was basically making the statement of, we wish them success, and we hope that that's not the case, but that's not up to us. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have both said that they will be conducting investigations to see whether or not any of the claims that are being made online are in any way legitimate enough that they could pursue legal action, which to me is just legal speak for, we're going to placate you to get you to shut up. And then at that point, if maybe something gets brought up in an investigation, we might bring it up, but more than likely we aren't, because it's not going to look good on our end to go and sue the little guy. And whether or not people like to look at it this way, Game Freak is a team of, I think the last time I looked at the number, it was like over 100 developers. Palworld is like 15 to 20. Yes, Palworld is the little guy. So at that point, I mean, feel free to say I'm wrong if I am, Alex, but that's just kind of my take on it. I think things are open-ended enough that it's basically the gaming justification of saying Palworld is a Doom clone.
Again, maybe I don't have a firm standing on this, and I kind of don't care one way or the other. I don't see it as like a...
That's really the sad reality of this whole thing, is like Pokemon fans who don't care, like you, Alex, they're getting dragged into something that they absolutely don't care about, so much so that Brinton is obviously in that, and he can't go to Twitter anymore because he got sick and tired of all the discussions.
Well, I will openly admit that it was a catalyst for sure.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, I've just become so sick and tired of, and I'm not trying to generalize the statement. I've just gotten sick and tired of people in the same communities that I try to be a part of, namely, for this discussion, the gaming community.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of sit there, and it's not like I'm engaging in conversation with people. It's just this silent thought of, like, why does it matter? Why should I care? Why should I be following the mainstream? Why can't I just enjoy what I enjoy? And why do you, some random person across the world, have to be so vehemently offended by the way I define my love for video games and how I interact with the medium? So all that just boiled up into this entire clusterfuck that is Palworld, and I just got to the point where I was like, where Twitter was not bringing any sort of happiness into my life. It was becoming a giant waste of time, and was one of those little things that I don't need in my life, so I got rid of it.
Right. And
and I've been so much more productive for it.
See, in my perspective, like I just turned off like any kinds of Pokemon hashtags. In all honesty, like I don't normally even do that, but I basically muted them because I got sick and tired of the arguments, especially when it started getting proven that some of these people making the arguments were manipulating facts in order to be able to get their opinion, to get their argument across. At that's not a way to win an argument, in my opinion. You either show it legitimately or you don't. And so at that point, like, and more importantly, one of the things that actually does irritate me on this is you both are Pokemon fans. So maybe you guys have this sentiment, but I've seen a lot of Pokemon fans bringing this up. But there is a consensus that apparently over the last few generations, starting from about Gen 8 or so, that Pokemon has hit kind of a slump where I guess developmentally they aren't, they're kind of slacking. They're becoming stagnant a little bit. And so in a lot of cases, Palworld might be the best thing for them because, I mean, Mick Foley said it the best. How do you get better unless someone chases you? And so at that point, if Palworld, which again, I don't think is a Pokemon clone, but if it was competition to Pokemon, if it was that competition, wouldn't that be a good thing? Because then at that point, it would encourage Game Freak and Nintendo to better their product for the Pokemon fan base. So then in that case, the fans win because either they get the preferences that they want with Palworld or they get the cool new improvements with Pokemon. Like, I don't see the downside here, but apparently we're not allowed to have nice things, according to social media. So, wonderful thing, wonderful invention, social media.
Yeah.
So
Whoever decided to connect the entire world with one another was an idiot.
So Al Gore was an idiot because he's the one that takes responsibility.
He never said that.
No, I know he didn't say that, but I always like bringing the joke.
I was about to say, in terms of the internet, yes.
Internet.
In terms of climate change, no.
I'm Al Gore and I created the internet, as well as Harry Potter and the Balance of Earth.
Oh my god.
I love that Futurama joke. Anyway, so final thoughts on Palworld. I think everybody needs to get over it. I honestly can say this. This is the same thing to me as Doom clones were back in the 90s. And ultimately, Doom clones actually turned out to be a good thing for the shooter market because it actually encouraged shooters to innovate, which at that point, that industry was run by one company, or not industry, but that genre was run by one company, people. So obviously that one company is not going to see a need to change unless they actually get competition, which they did, and then they ultimately got better. So I don't see a problem here. Brenton, Alex, maybe you'll talk me off the ledge. I don't know.
Not everyone just needs to chill out.
Yeah.
I completely agree. The reaction on this is just a bit.
Can we just buy a bunch of chill
Much.
pill suppositories and send them over to Elon Musk to start sending out to people? Can we just do that? That would save so much manpower. Although I guess nobody would take the suppositories. So there's that. What was that?
I'm just like, oh god.
Yeah. That's where this conversation's gone. Yeah, and unfortunately that's all the stories that we actually have because January, these have been pretty much the stories that have dominated. And yeah, the familiarity of some of these stories is not lost on me. The fact that, in some cases we have problems with people telling us what we can and can't own, and then we ultimately want to tell people what different kind of monster collecting game we're allowed to own. January's been a weird month, and I have no problem saying goodbye to it. What about you guys?
Oh, I've already given my piece. I'm happy. It's done and over
I'm
with.
burning this month in effigy. I am glad to see it go. But thankfully, it looks like maybe some things might be improving in February. I mean, for crying out loud, we'll at least have a Xbox event to be able to talk about, and also a Sony event or a couple of Sony events to talk about. So you guys can look forward to that. In the meantime, if you want to be able to reach out to us to be able to get our opinions on certain subjects, well, we just barely openly admitted that you can't access Brinton right now. Sorry. Not sorry. But Brinton, feel free to tell them how they can not do that.
I mean, it's honestly at this point, your best bet is Adam. That really is just a case.
Yep. Alex, how about you?
Like I said, I'm on YouTube, Shadow Blizzard 3000. That's my channel. And yes, I did just make a big video reflecting on the 2023 anime that I had watched. So please give it a watch.
And just to give people kind of a sneak peek of what we might be looking into in February, we have the controversy surrounding Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and their celebration of the legacy of Kevin Conroy. So we have that. That's going to be fun. Gina Carano is going to sue Disney to get her job back. What? Yes, that's in the legal document. She's suing to get her job back. Kind of surprised on that one. Like I said, we have the two Sony events that are going to be happening. And Brinton's going to love this one because Tifa's back in the news again. And the media, or the social media populace, is once again wanting her to get breast and ass reduction surgery, because why not? For in particular with FF7 Rebirth, but also there is a huge demand that she be introduced into Tekken 8 as a DLC character. And this is the funniest thing I read in all of January. Apparently Katsuhiro Harada had an opportunity to negotiate that and didn't think about it. I shit you not. He was on a panel with Square Enix FF7 designers, and somebody asked him at a later convention, like, did you talk to them about putting Tifa in Tekken 8? He's like, actually, the thought didn't even cross my mind.
Well, that's a shame.
I love Harada. Look, here's one reason to love Katsuhiro Harada, because like a lot of developers, I love them dearly. Even Kojima can do this. They can put out a PR speech. Harada is one of those few that just looks at you and goes, "Huh, I should have done that," and he's brutally honest about it. It's almost like, you know, he's got way too much on his plate, and so then at that point, when you bring up an idea that he could have gone into, now he regrets it. But he wasn't thinking about it up until that point. I might actually have to find that story as well, because that is so stupid. It's like, yeah, I was actually on a panel with some of those designers, and I didn't even think about to ask them about it. So that being said, also, if you want to be able to, if you're brand spanking new to the podcast and want to be able to enjoy more of it, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you're listening on YouTube, feel free to give a like and a subscribe. I definitely appreciate that with the content. And you can check out some of the other things that we're doing right now. For example, you can listen to the wonderful Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City coverage that we have that unfortunately is going to get delayed until the summer to do Battle City finals. We are excited for that, but we got to get past this semester for Brinton and also past winter for the rest of us. So you guys can look forward to that. Also, you can look forward to me and Alex the Shadow Blazer reviewing Sonic Prime, because we always just have such uniform opinions on Sonic the Hedgehog, don't we, Alex?
Yeah.
Let me tell ya. And so you guys can look forward to that, or you can check out some of the other podcasts that we are currently doing. For example, our podcast of our opinions on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I am looking forward to putting that out for you guys, because that was the best film that we watched when we were on vacation. And trust me, we're working on a lineup right now for this upcoming August, so don't worry about that too much. Also, if you guys want to be able to reach out to us, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. You can leave stories, you can leave feedback. We definitely appreciate that. Or you can subscribe to the RSS feed, which is you can find on Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Player.fm, and of course, Spotify. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So for myself, for Alex, and for Brinton, and hopefully for you guys, I hope that January was at least somewhat good for you. And here's hoping that February continues that trend, because we're in the doldrums, boys and girls. We've got a couple more months of this, and I have a feeling that after Groundhog's Day, it's only going to get worse. Until then, we'll see you guys next time.